Hello everyone. In my prior recording I covered Zane, as I think Zane will be my main. I will admit that it is pretty early, so there's always a chance that new information could be posted or new videos could pop up. If there's anything to change my mind about Zane, Moz will be my backup. In addition to showing the Moz build that I have, I will be talking a little bit about the mechanics revolving around her skills. Zane gets interaction or trigger with cryo weapons and freeze. Moz gets a trigger or interaction with incendiary and COV weapons. There are, I believe, two skills that involve COV weapons in her tree. This one up here, match set, and this one, click click. Click click for sure is a COV skill. This one I'm not 100% sure on, but it does say decreased heat per shot, so that does make me think that this is a COV skill. Another interaction is right here called Scrappy. Mode switch speed. I'll cover that as well. So, here's a picture of a COV weapon that I was able to find for use on this recording here at Reddit. You'll notice at the bottom it says unlimited magazine size, weapon heats up, and eventually will break. There's a lot of unknowns with this, but this right here is a COV weapon. We need to wait until closer to launch or at launch to know more about this, but it would appear that Moz is the only one with a COV interaction. As far as this mode switch speed is concerned, that is going to involve the rate of fire change on the weapon or a special thing for the weapon, such as attached grenade launcher. This is another Reddit post to talk about it here. I'll link both of these Reddit posts for you in the description. With that sort of covered, let's go ahead and now get into the build. So I started out with Cloud of Lead instead of Match Set because this is really not as valuable as Cloud of Lead. The problem with Match Set is it requires a very specific setup. So while you could do it, it's just not going to give you as much of a bonus as Cloud of Lead. So Cloud of Lead, essentially what it is a magazine increase in a non-traditional way. Every 4 shots does not consume ammo, and it does bonus incendiary damage. Essentially, if you have a 50-round magazine, you're getting 12 bullets from this skill, increasing the magazine size technically to 62, in addition to doing the damage on 12 bullets. That's extremely valuable. If this skill below it, Stoke the Embers, does increase the damage that's coming from this, that becomes even more valuable. Unfortunately, it's very hard to tell if this triggers with that or not, because it just says incendiary damage from Moz and Iron Bear's incendiary damage. Redistribution, I'm fairly certain that this does not work with COV weapons, because it just says regenerate ammo. If it was a COV thing, I would imagine it would have something with heat in it. But I'm not seeing that, so I'm pretty sure that this is something that only works with normal weaponry. But yeah, so I started out in Cloud of Lead and Stoked the Embers, went down here. I didn't really spend that much into Scrappy. I only used the extra points that I had left over in that. Everything else that I want to focus on was things like Scorching RPMs, that's straightforwards, fire rate and crit hit damage. The Iron Bank, this is another trigger for Cloud of Lead. Specialist Bear, that's just all around important in my opinion. From what I've been able to see with playthrough videos of Moz, the Iron Bear has combined more health than Moz does and has a higher damage reduction. So any points spent into that is just increasing her survivability as well as being able to dish it out to the enemy. Click Click mentioned earlier, this is a skill that does trigger with COV weapons as well as normal weapons. The less ammo there is in the magazine, the more damage you get out of it. So that's why I have Iron Bank, Redistribution, and Cloud of Lead. The unfortunate thing down here with Forge is it's very hard for me to tell how much use this will get, because all it says is 5% of magazine per second. It's the same thing we're seeing up here, 5% of magazine. So it's not telling you if it's 5% of the total magazine capacity or if it's 5% of the magazine that's currently in there. If it's 5% of the total magazine, then that's a lot more valuable. But if it's only how much is in the magazine, then this might not be as valuable. We'll see. But either way, I did get to the bottom of the tree, just because I really didn't have much else to spend into. Everything else I wanted elsewhere, I got, so. Oh, and we'll talk about the Iron Bear weaponry in a minute. Let's go and get through the skill tree. So as mentioned, this is beneficial for you to spend more into Iron Bear, and that's what you're doing here. All you're doing is Iron Bear skills on this tree, Demolition Woman. You're looking for deadlines, which increases the fuel capacity in its own way. Basically, each enemy you kill gives you fuel, but on top of that, it's decreasing the fuel drain. This skill over here, for each enemy you kill, you lower the cooldown. Then finally get here to Stainless Steel Bear. Given that the Iron Bear appears to be already very tanky, this is a to be determined skill. I would not consider this part of the final build, because that 5 points can be spent in the other tree if there's more value to do that. And we'll go ahead and show you that now. So in this tree, Security Bear gives the Iron Bear a shield, so that's obviously a good skill. Armored Infantry is another good skill. It says while Moze's shields are active. This means that she's the complete opposite of Zane. In Zane's case, any of his skills require that he be at full shields. It just says while active. So Moze can go down to 100 shields and this will still be active. This makes her skill a lot more usable than Zane's in terms of the shield stuff. Then you go down here to find Vladoff Ingenuity. If you remember from Borderlands 2 and 3, or 1, 2, shock damage does increase damage to shields. I'm not sure if that's still going to be the same mechanic, but this decreases the amount of shock damage you're taking and increasing the shields in the process. So this is lowering the bonus damage from electric weapons on you, essentially. And then eventually you get down here to Experimental Munitions, which is when you score a critical hit, does bonus incendiary damage. Just like Cloud of Lead, I don't know if Stoke the Embers triggers with that. But either way, that's great to have. If you build a crit build on Moze, she'll be able to do a lot of damage between the triggers of her incendiary and this over here, which increases her critical hit damage. Then finally, the full can thing. This essentially just starts the shield recharge the second you enter the Iron Bear for you and your allies. Again, very valuable, because you want to be able to switch between Iron Bear and Moze combat. That's how Moze works, is you need to use your Iron Bear for situations where it's just too much, and then once your Iron Bear is used, you should be at a point where you can handle the rest as Moze. So yeah, okay, let's go ahead and talk about the weaponry now for the Iron Bear. So there's a lot of different weapons here. This tree gives you the railgun. There's railgun upgrades on the left side. There's a new weapon here, which essentially gives the Iron Bearer fists, and you can upgrade that as needed down here. I don't see a point in the fist because it requires a lot of investment in comparison to the other ones just to get the shock hammer thing, which would make sustained rapid fire possible with the fists. So I don't see a point in this one. The railgun might be okay, but it's going to cause a pretty significant fuel drain if you put one of those on there. So, let's look at the next one. So, this is minigun. Minigun is meh because it just heats up too quickly. I've seen that way too often in the playthroughs of on YouTube. Even if you have let off some steam, it still takes up too much heat. Your miniguns will overheat before you actually manage to kill the entire group of enemies. Exploding bullets might be able to fix that issue because it just increases the damage of each bullet while decreasing the fire rate. But I think because you're already doing a Stoke the Embers build, it's far more valuable to go over here to Salamander, which is the new weapon this tree introduces. Salamander is a flamethrower that deals incendiary damage. Look at the bottom paragraph though. It says, though the Salamander has infinite ammo, it drains fuel with use. So this right here is infinite ammo, which means you can do this as long as the Iron Bear's up. Down here you get an upgrade for it called Fuel Economy. It reduces the Salamander fuel drain and increases the Iron Bear's movement speed after damaging an enemy with Salamander. So that's pretty awesome. If you remember from this tree, this causes the fuel drain to go down. So between this and fuel economy, you should be able to sustain a Salamander spray for quite an extended amount of time. Certainly a lot more than the minigun will. Plus you're getting damage from Stoke the Embers. The only other viable weapon that I'm seeing is the V35 grenade launcher. You do have access to the Shaped Charge upgrade because of how many points have been spent into this tree in its current state anyways. Now this does cause the V35 to do increased damage if it's a direct hit. I'm not sure how easy it is going to get direct hits with a V35, but I would say that this would be an alternative to the Salamander if the exploding bullets does not work out. Okay, with all that discussed, Iron Bear and whatnot, let me go and talk about this now, the stainless steel bear part. Like I said, this is a to be determined skill. I'm not sure if this is going to be in the final build yet. The Iron Bear is already super tanky. While it is nice to get maximum fuel, it's 5 points to get both of that. So the 5 skills could be put over here to finally finish off Vladof Ingenuity, and you might be able to get behind the Iron Curtain. I haven't checked the calculations for that yet, but this would allow you to recharge your shields more frequently. That would in turn keep up armored infantry more. So yeah, we'll have to see where things go with that, but for now this is kind of what I'm looking at. So 3 2 5 5 3 1 2 5 5 1 3 and 1. Over here it's 1 5 4 1 1, and that's how I would do the build. That's the most I have. Thanks for listening.